You are going to die in there.
In front of an abandoned mansion stood a little girl in a yellow dress, staring at the house without moving. Two other kids soon arrived, even making insulting gestures toward the girl. Seeing the boy about to enter the mansion, Adelaide gave him a friendly warning. The boy, angered, responded to Adelaide with foul language, and the two kids entered the mansion, smashing everything they could see. But by accident, they awakened something unclean. Strange things quickly began to happen. A dead boar suddenly appeared, yet it looked like it had only died recently. The boy felt no fear, instead finding it amusing. Nearby, a wooden door slowly creaked open, and they ventured into the basement to investigate, discovering many bizarre limb specimens. The boy in red carelessly smashed a specimen, releasing a foul stench. They didn't notice a strange figure flickering behind them. Deciding to leave, the boy in red suddenly vanished, despite the boy in green calling out loudly for his friend. There was no answer. With his close friend suddenly gone, the boy in green had no choice but to return to the basement to search. A hideous monster suddenly appeared. Time flashed forward 20 years, and the once dilapidated mansion had been completely renovated. Ben and his family planned to move into this newly restored mansion, as it was offered at just 1/3 of its normal price. The homeowner, Marcy, did not hide the truth from Ben's family. She explained that the previous owners were a gay couple. After renovating the house, both had died one after the other, which was why the house was so cheap. Violet, upon hearing that people had died in the house, immediately agreed to buy it. That night, Ben tried to celebrate moving in with his wife, Vivian, but she coldly refused him. Just 2 days prior, Vivian had lost their child in the hospital, and upon returning home, she heard strange noises. She called for help and then grabbed a knife from the table before heading upstairs. Soon, she heard some rather embarrassing noises. Opening the bathroom door, she found Ben in the middle of an affair with his student. Ben felt guilty and decided to take his wife and daughter away from this sorrowful place. The next day, as Vivian was cleaning the house, the now adult Adelaide appeared again. At that moment, her mother, Constance, also arrived and apologized to Vivian. She explained that she was a devout believer and that Adelaide had been born with deformities due to an accident. Vivian didn't understand, but Constance left her a delicate gift as she departed. She also offered to help rid the house of its evil spirits, as past events were too painful to recall. Vivian was more confused than ever. She had no idea what Constance meant by evil spirits. After lighting the sage Constance had given her, Vivian began searching each room for the spirits. Suddenly, a trapdoor appeared, but when she climbed to the roof, everything was pitch black. Hearing calls for help, Ben and Violet rushed over. They discovered a black rubber suit hidden there, guessing it must have belonged to the previous owners. Ben looked at the rubber suit thoughtfully, then tossed it into the trash bin outside. That night, Ben, fast asleep, suddenly awoke. As if a sinister voice was controlling him, he walked to the fireplace and lit a fire. The next day, while Vivian was making the bed, a mysterious woman visited. She introduced herself as Moira, the housekeeper of the mansion, and said her services were free of charge. Intrigued by the free offer, Vivian invited Moira over for a gathering. Moira explained that she had worked as the mansion's housekeeper for many years. Even though the owners had changed multiple times, she had never left. At that moment, Ben rushed home, but the Moira he saw was different from the one Vivian saw. Satisfied with her goal, Moira told them she would come to clean every Wednesday, then left. Vivian didn't notice anything unusual about Ben, unaware that in his eyes, Moira was a young woman. A few days later, Ben heard strange noises coming from the next room. He opened the door to find the housekeeper lying there, seemingly enjoying herself. Frustrated, Ben returned to his room to cry alone. Following the sound, Ben looked out the window and saw a man standing below. The woman was applying lotion to her legs when suddenly, a man in a rubber suit appeared outside the door. Vivian thought the man in the rubber suit was her husband, Ben, and began making advances toward him. But the real Ben was sleepwalking in the kitchen, turning on all the gas taps and placing his hand over the flames. At the critical moment, Constance appeared and said, "It's not your time yet." Ben, as if possessed, couldn't say a word. He slowly returned to the room, and Vivian didn't notice anything unusual. Instead, she made a strange comment.
I love you.
The next day, during his morning run, Ben felt as if someone was following him, so he deliberately ran into a desolate area. As the person behind him got closer, Ben took the opportunity to hide and grab the man. To his surprise, it was Larry, the the same man who had warned Ben that his family was in danger. Larry explained that 70% of his body had been burned, and if Ben didn't quickly take his family away from the mansion, they would all die tragically. Confused, Ben didn't understand why Larry would curse his family like this. Larry had no choice but to reveal the truth. He suffered from severe, terminal brain cancer, with no hope of recovery. He had once lived in that mansion for 6 months. Soon, he began to hear voices, a strange sound constantly urging him to kill his wife and daughter. Unable to resist the influence of the voices, Larry doused his home in gasoline and ended his family in flames. Though he survived the fire, the death of his wife and daughter would haunt him for life. Hearing Larry's increasingly absurd story, Ben grew increasingly agitated, because Larry said he experienced sleepwalking, which is exactly what Ben was dealing with now. Ben stormed off in anger, but Larry had a sinister smile on his face. Meanwhile, Constance snuck into the mansion to try on Vivian's necklace but was caught by the housekeeper, Moira. However, Constance remained unfazed and even blamed Moira for meddling. Moira, facing Constance, dared not say a word. As days went by, Ben and Vivian's relationship didn't improve. Instead, strange things kept happening. Vivian returned home, only to witness another paranormal event. Frustrated, Vivian called Constance over, demanding an explanation. Constance simply shrugged it off, saying it was normal. She explained that the mansion was like their backyard, with people coming and going freely. Adelaide claimed she was innocent and blamed everything on the twin boys. Vivian was utterly confused, as she didn't know any twins. Before leaving, Constance warned Vivian not to harm Adelaide. Today was Violet's first day at her new school, but she was blocked outside by a bully. However, Violet wasn't intimidated by the bully at all, and a confrontation was inevitable. At the same time, she made her only friend at school Tate, but Tate was a schizophrenic patient, while Ben was a professional psychiatrist. Since the mansion was big enough, Ben set up a room to consult with patients about their future. Tate was Ben's first patient, and he said he had been experiencing hallucinations for the past 2 years. He claimed he was called to join a holy crusade and would rule the earth as a supreme being. Ben was at a loss for words, wondering how he ended up with a patient like this. The next day, Tate snuck into the mansion to meet Violet for a date. As a troubled teen and a mental patient, their conversation topics were anything but ordinary. Suddenly, Ben burst into the room, knowing how dangerous Tate was, and angrily warned Violet to stay away from him. Not long after, Moira arrived to clean the study, but to Ben's eyes, she once again appeared as a young woman in a maid's outfit. Ben was at his breaking point, wanting to pursue something more with Moira. Just then, Violet opened the door. Frustrated, Violet went to school and made a deal with the bully. Violet told her that she had something at home that the bully needed, and the bully didn't suspect a thing. She didn't believe Violet could pose any threat. The two of them went to the mansion's basement, where the bully found Tate sitting in the center of the room. Tate looked deranged, thrashing around as terrifying visions filled the room. The bully was absolutely terrified. This mansion had been a dormitory for a nursing school 7 years ago. One night, a group of students planned to attend a concert, leaving 2 girls behind. Not long after they left, a frantic knock came at the door. One of the girls opened it to find a man with a bleeding head, claiming he was injured and needed help. Being a medical student, she didn't refuse to assist the injured man. As she bandaged his head, the man noticed the cross necklace she was wearing and asked if she believed in salvation. The girl soon realized she couldn't find the wound on the man's head. Despite her efforts, it was as if he had never been hurt. Before she could react, the man attacked her. Terrified, she tried to escape. After a while, the girl woke up. Having been knocked unconscious, she saw the man standing before her, demanding she change into a new uniform. Frightened out of her mind, the girl had no choice but to obey. Next, she was forced into a strange position and tightly bound. She began reciting prayers, hoping for salvation. Seeing that she had stopped resisting, the man turned and left. The girl, confused, thought her prayers had worked, but then the man suddenly returned, stabbing her repeatedly in the back. After the girl's death, the mansion became known as a haunted house. Back in the present, the bully, traumatized by what she saw in the basement, had changed her ways. She claimed she had never seen such a terrifying demon and hadn't slept in 3 days. Even her hair had turned white from fear. The girl was having a pleasant dream when Tate suddenly appeared beside her bed. At that moment, a loud alarm rang out, waking Ben and his wife. They rushed downstairs to check what was happening. Accompanied by eerie laughter, Ben was startled like a frightened bird. Upon reaching the basement, they found Adelaide had snuck in again. Ben was at his wit's end. They were beginning to seriously doubt the safety of the mansion. Vivian admitted she was physically and emotionally exhausted ever since she had slept with the man in the rubber suit. She had become pregnant again, but strangely, 2 months had passed without the pregnancy progressing, which didn't make sense. She suspected something was wrong with the baby. Ben tried to comfort her, saying that the baby was the reason they had moved into the mansion. The next day, Ben received news that his lover was also pregnant. He lied to Vivian, saying an old patient needed his help and that he wouldn't be home for the next few days. In reality, he was accompanying his lover to get an abortion. Unaware, Vivian was once again deceived by Ben. Meanwhile, Constance was preparing dessert, and she even had Adelaide spit into it to enhance the flavor. The dessert was then served to Vivian. Constance claimed she had made it herself as compensation for Adelaide disturbing their peace. Vivian was delighted, and Constance said she could sense the presence of new life. The smell was as sweet as the dessert. The two of them had a brief conversation, where Constance revealed that she had other children in the past, but they had died young. As she was leaving, Constance reassured Vivian that her baby would be fine, saying that nothing is more beautiful than the anticipation of new life. Vivian brought the dessert Constance had made to Violet and told her the news about her pregnancy. Violet didn't seem upset. Instead, she thought her mother was too weak. Meanwhile, Ben had already arrived at his lover's house to be with her. At that moment, 3 masked intruders broke into the house, tying up Violet and Vivian tightly. When the masks came off, they realized it was 3 kids looking for a thrill. One of the girls pulled out a surprise. It was clear these 3 young people had lost their minds. They wanted to recreate the infamous nurse murders from years ago in the dormitories of the school hospital. They forced Violet to change into a special outfit, but just as she stood up, Violet broke free and ran for the door. Suddenly, Tate appeared inside the mansion, telling Violet that all she had to do was lure the intruders to the basement. The girl chasing Violet quickly caught up to her, dragging her into the bathroom to change into the outfit she had prepared. One of the other girls casually grabbed the dessert Constance had made and, after just 2 bites, suddenly had an overwhelming urge to use the bathroom. Violet took this opportunity to try to escape, but the girl blocked her with a small knife. The girl then started to describe the process of how she was going to kill Violet. She would hold her under the water for 3 minutes, causing brain death from lack of oxygen. At this, Violet suddenly lit up and began talking about the bathtub in the basement. She said that the bathtub in the basement had titanium faucets, which were far superior to the ones in this old bathroom. Meanwhile, Vivian was tied to a chair, unable to move, unsure of what the boy planned to do to her. At that critical moment, she saw Adelaide. Vivian told the boy that he wouldn't be able to kill her tonight because someone would come to stop him. The boy thought Vivian was crazy and cut the ropes binding her, ordering her to change into a nurse's outfit. Taking advantage of the boy's distraction, Vivian attacked him, knocking him out cold. Violet successfully lured the girl to the basement, where she was stunned by what she saw. The girl had no idea there was another boy hiding in the mansion. After using the bathroom, the girl went back to look for her friends, only to see a strange figure flash by, and her friends had vanished. Within seconds, the girl was sliced in half. At the same time, Violet tricked the other girl into the basement and then managed to escape. However, the relentless girl didn't realize that this mansion was haunted. She no longer paid attention to Tate, but after a glance inside, she saw a white figure. After seeing Vivian in danger, Adelaide ran back home to get Constance, but Constance didn't believe Adelaide and locked her in a room full of mirrors. Vivian and Violet were both safe by now, and after reuniting, they hurried outside, their shouts catching Constance's attention. Meanwhile, the boy also saw a figure in white pass by and followed it to the basement. He was close to a breakdown, and then things got even worse when he saw the girl who had been killed and the ghost of the nurse who had died 30 years ago. At the same time, Ben was at an abortion clinic with his lover. He had no idea what was happening to his wife and daughter back home, but when he saw the multiple missed calls from his wife on his phone, Ben realized something was terribly wrong. The scene shifted to the basement of the mansion, where Tate and Moira stood together. It was clear that the 3 of them weren't exactly human anymore. Staring at the 2 corpses, Constance asked Tate if he was the one who had killed them, but Tate insisted it wasn't him, it was the ghost of the nurse. Tate didn't want Ben's family to know the truth, so they had to destroy the bodies. The next day, Ben returned home, where the police questioned him. Ben explained that he had been visiting a patient, which was why he hadn't been able to get home in time. The police handed Ben a photograph of a girl. It turned out that she was one of Ben's former patients. The police said they had found the girl 6 blocks away, with her waist severed. According to their investigation, these kids had even formed a club. intending to reenact various heinous murders. After the police left, Violet was deeply disappointed in her father. Even though she didn't know how Tate had sneaked into the house, it no longer mattered. The most important thing was that Violet hadn't been hurt. Vivian, completely disheartened, no longer saw the mansion as home. She decided to sell it. Vivian met with Marcy, recounting all the bizarre incidents that had recently taken place. She accused Marcy of deceiving her family by not revealing the full history of the house. Had she known about all the deaths that had occurred there, she would never have bought it. Meanwhile, Moira appeared in front of Ben once again, and to Ben's eyes, she had transformed back into the young maid. But in Constance's vision, Moira was still an elderly woman. Whenever the two met, they acted like bitter enemies. Constance said that seeing Moira felt like torture. There was obviously a deep history between them. It turned out that 30 years ago, Constance's family had lived in this mansion, and back then, Moira had been a beautiful young maid, while Constance's husband was notorious for being a lecher. After seeing the bed Moira had made, the man commented that he would make good use of the pretty sheets. Though Moira was reluctant, she didn't dare defy him because she desperately needed the job. At that moment, Constance appeared at the door with a gun, and both of them were terrified. Ignoring the man's excuses, Constance shot Moira dead. The man tried to cover it up, but Constance shot him too. After her death, Moira became a spirit, bound to the mansion forever. In the present day, Ben, his hands covered in blood, seemed dazed. He tried to go home, but the housekeeper was cleaning blood off the floor. Moira assured Ben that she hadn't seen anything and told him not to worry. He could safely greet his next victim. It turned out that Ben had just met with a patient, a woman who was getting divorced next week. She had tried for 23 years to keep her marriage alive, and now it was over. She was devastated, unsure if she would ever be loved again or find someone to love. The woman became more and more agitated, sending Ben into a mental spiral, leading him to kill her. After Moira cleaned up the blood, she didn't leave. Instead, she continued to seduce Ben. At that moment, Vivian returned home and sensed something off between the two. She called them together to clear up any misunderstandings. Ben exploded, claiming that Moira had been doing strange things to seduce him daily, but he had always rejected her advances. However, to Vivian, Moira was just an elderly woman. How could she be seducing her husband? Seeing Moira's emotional outburst, Vivian said nothing more, believing it was all Ben's fault. Vivian had been suffocated by the strange events of late, so the next day, she joined a local tour to escape from it all. During the tour, the guide revealed the history of the mansion. It had been built in 1992 by a surgeon for his wife, but just days after they moved in, Charles had been infected by a virus and began conducting strange research in the basement. The result of his experiments was those bizarre organs and limbs. He combined different animal parts in an attempt to create a new species, but scientific research required funds, and the already struggling family was financially ruined. Nora, fed up with this life, blamed Charles for ruining the family and demanded large sums of money every month, regardless of the means. The next day, a woman seeking an abortion secretly came to the basement for the procedure. Nora gave Dorothy a drugged drink, saying it would help her forget everything. Years of performing abortions in the mansion had filled it with a heavy aura of resentment. 24 girls had died under the doctor's scalpel. Back in the present, as the tour guide continued explaining the mansion's gruesome history, Vivian suddenly felt a rush of blood running down her legs, and terrified, she ran straight home. Ben hurriedly took Vivian to the hospital, and the results were perfect. The doctor said their baby was healthy. The sudden bleeding was just a normal occurrence, and the doctor assured her not to worry too much. Vivian thought her stress might have been caused by all the recent issues with the house. They were already planning to move. That man was no ordinary person. Despite his scarred face, he was a ruthless character. He was ready to beat his lover to death over money. Meanwhile, the woman was still thinking about what to have for dinner when she was suddenly knocked to the ground. Ben was shocked. He couldn't believe that Larry would kill someone just for money. Ben was terrified, but Larry said he was helping him. Larry explained that Ben's lover was pregnant, and if Vivian found out the truth, it would destroy their family. Larry had just solved this problem for him, but Ben still couldn't accept that his lover had died right in front of him. Larry said he'd take care of the body and told Ben not to worry, just don't forget to pay him. Ben stood there shaking in fear as Larry pulled out a shovel and started digging. As Larry dug deeper, Moira appeared outside the window. She looked at the deep hole Larry had made, and tears filled her eyes. Moira's body had been buried there as well. Larry then buried Ben's lover alongside Moira's body. After Larry finished everything, Ben poured cement over the burial site, turning it into a small garden pavilion. Vivian came over, and the two of them smiled happily in the pavilion, completely unaware of the two bodies buried beneath their feet. The next day, Vivian met with Marcy again, saying that in the past 2 weeks, only one woman had come to look at the house, but before the woman could finish the tour, she was scared off by the strange atmosphere of the house. Marcy suggested that Halloween was coming up, and decorating the house with some fun and festive pumpkins might make it more appealing. That night, a loud noise came from outside, and Ben rushed out to investigate, only to find two kids throwing eggs at their house. With Halloween approaching, the family was busy preparing pumpkins. Larry returned, demanding payment for killing Ben's lover. He warned Ben that if he didn't pay up, he would dig up the lover's body from beneath the pavilion and show it to Vivian. Ben was furious his lover had been killed by Larry, and now he was being blackmailed. Unable to hold it in any longer, Ben grabbed the pumpkin from Larry's hands and kicked him. Meanwhile, Vivian contacted the police, requesting professional surveillance equipment to monitor every corner of the house. The police told her that if she ever felt in danger at night, she could press the emergency button by the bed, and they would arrive at the house as quickly as possible. Vivian was overjoyed, thinking her safety was finally secured. She then went to the living room, where she found Moira preparing pumpkins for Halloween. Moira said she would be leaving for a day to visit her mother on Halloween. Vivian didn't think much of it and took the pumpkin that Moira had carved. Outside, two men caught Vivian's attention. They said they really liked the house, mentioning how it had an eternal feel to it. Vivian was happy to have potential buyers, and the men introduced themselves. One was Chad, and the other was Patrick, his longtime partner. The two of them had been the previous owners of the mansion. Many years ago, this young couple was preparing for Halloween at the house. Patrick suddenly became very emotional, saying that he wanted true love, real love, and that he genuinely wanted to spend his life with Chad. Chad was touched, thinking Patrick was an amazing man. But after Patrick left, a mysterious man in a rubber suit appeared. Chad assumed Patrick was playing a trick on him, and he continued to talk to the man. Unaware of the danger, the man in the rubber suit moved closer and killed Chad. Patrick returned to the room, only to find his lover dead in front of him. Now, with Halloween approaching, the spirits of the murdered couple had returned to the mansion. Vivian, seeing the two men appear at the house, assumed Marcy had invited them and brought them inside to help carve pumpkins. Chad thought this would be an unforgettable Halloween. Meanwhile, Violet sneaked into the basement, looking for Tate. The man in the rubber suit appeared again, but this time, he didn't harm Violet. Instead, he removed the mask. Violet found this incredibly exciting. To scare Violet further, Tate told her the full story of the haunted mansion. In the early 1920s, a surgeon named Charles built the mansion. He had worked in the basement, and though he was a renowned surgeon, he became infected with a virus. His wife, Nora, didn't want to live a poor life, so she began arranging secret abortion surgeries for women, bringing in extra money for the family. One day, a girl accidentally revealed their secret. Soon after, a strange man called the house. Nora called out to her young son but received no answer. When Nora rushed to her son's room, she found that her child was gone. The man on the phone wanted revenge, so he had taken Charles and Nora's son. The next day, the couple received a package from the police containing jars filled with parts of their son's body. In his grief, Charles used his surgical skills to try to bring his son back to life, but the boy didn't come back. Instead, under Charles's surgical work, the boy became an undead creature, a malevolent spirit. Even after Charles and Nora died, that evil spirit remained, and it still lurks in the basement to this day. Violet didn't find this story funny at all. She didn't believe it. She and Tate left the basement, planning to go on a real date. Elsewhere, a young girl wanted to dress up as a beautiful lady for Halloween, but her mother gave her a human skin mask, saying it suited her better. The girl was thrilled with the mask, as it was the first gift her mother had given her in decades. Meanwhile, the mansion had been meticulously decorated by Chad, making it even more terrifying. Vivian was upset, as Chad had transformed the house without her permission. But to Chad, now a spirit, he already considered himself the master of the mansion. He scolded Ben for not buying green apples and even tried to drive Vivian and Ben out of the house. Vivian's mood grew more erratic, and after the two men left, her stomach began to hurt. She said she felt the baby kicking. They rushed to the hospital, where the doctor examined Vivian and assured her that it wasn't possible for the baby to be kicking yet. Vivian was very worried about the baby's safety, but the doctor said there was no danger. However, while monitoring the baby's heartbeat, the doctor noticed something unusual. The baby didn't seem to be at the normal stage for a 2-month-old fetus. Suddenly, the doctor froze, leaving the couple confused. unsure of what was happening. Elsewhere, Adelaide arrived at the mansion, carrying the human skin mask her mother had given her, looking for Violet. Nearby, a group of girls in strange costumes mocked Adelaide, ridiculing her. Devastated, Adelaide chased after the girls, hoping to confront them, but just a few steps later, a car came speeding toward her. Adelaide was hit and thrown to the ground, motionless. The driver sped away from the scene. Despite the accident, Adelaide's mother, Constance, refused medical help. She frantically dragged her daughter to the lawn outside the mansion, but Adelaide remained unresponsive. Constance was heartbroken. She had failed to save her only daughter. Meanwhile, Moira arrived at the hospital, searching for her elderly mother. She looked at the old woman and seemed to make a decision. Moira walked over and said it was all her fault. Her mother had ended up like this because of her. Moira then made the difficult decision to remove the oxygen mask from her mother's face. Just then, Moira's mother appeared behind her and told her to come along. Back at the mansion, Violet was in danger as well. A loud, frantic knocking came from the door outside. Larry was pressuring Ben about the money he owed him. Violet, terrified, called her father for help. But Ben just told her to lock the door and not call the police. He promised they would come home as fast as possible. Violet stood trembling, while Tate, disguised as the man in the rubber suit, appeared beside her, perhaps sensing something. Violet turned around, only to find the rubber suit man had vanished. Violet returned to her room, and suddenly, a strange little black hand appeared. At that moment, a noise came from outside the window. Violet went to check and found it was Tate looking for her. In the blink of an eye, they were in the basement, having a date. Violet told Tate that this house was driving her insane. First, there were constant police sirens outside, and then some crazy person started pounding on the door. Tate did his best to calm Violet down. He pulled out 4 roses and handed them to her. Violet was thrilled, saying it was the first time she had ever received roses. Not long after, Vivian and Ben returned home, searching the house frantically, but Violet was nowhere to be found. Then, there was another loud knock at the door. When Ben opened it, he was shocked to find his dead lover, Hayden, standing there, but Ben didn't realize that Hayden was already dead. He urged her to leave the house immediately. Facing Hayden's taunts, Ben looked disgusted. He believed Hayden and Larry were conspiring together to extort him for money. Hayden said she missed him so much, and she could no longer hold back her feelings. As soon as she finished speaking, Hayden coughed up blood, leaving Ben stunned. Even at that moment, Ben refused to believe that Hayden was dead. Then, Larry appeared with a shovel, and Ben was instantly knocked to the ground. Seeing Hayden resurrected by the power of the dead, Larry was terrified. He sincerely apologized to Hayden, but after she left, Larry pulled out a lighter, as if planning something. Hayden appeared in the bathtub, but her voice was heard by the dog outside. Vivian rushed to check but saw nothing unusual in the bathroom. Once she entered, however, flames suddenly erupted. Violet was completely unaware of the paranormal events happening at home and was at the beach with Tate. Talking about love, they began to get closer, but at the critical moment, Tate stopped. Violet said she was willing to wait for him. Before they could react, a group of teens dressed in strange costumes suddenly appeared. They seemed to have a deep grudge against Tate, and each of them had severe wounds. They told Tate they had been waiting for him for decades. Judging by their injuries, it was clear these teens were no longer alive. They had been resurrected as spirits by the power of Halloween. Violet thought it was an extreme prank, but Tate knew these people were spirits like him. He quickly turned and led Violet away. When they returned home, Violet demanded to know why Tate had friends like that. Tate explained that they were just high school students who enjoyed being cruel and harsh. He claimed they had nearly scared him to death. Suddenly, eerie noises came from outside the window. They looked out to see the same group of teenagers had followed them. Tate was too scared to move, but Violet, unaware they were spirits, grabbed a weapon and headed downstairs, ready to take on all 5 of them. Violet warned the teens that if they didn't leave immediately, she would take them all down. The teens quickly turned their attention to Violet, and despite her bold words, she began to lose the upper hand. One of the boys spoke, and blood leaked from his mouth, making Violet realize that something was seriously wrong with these people. At the crucial moment, Tate appeared and immediately fled. Seeing the spirits chasing after Tate, Violet quickly pulled out her phone and called the police for help. Constance suddenly appeared, bringing Violet to Adelaide's body. She blamed Violet for Adelaide's death, saying Adelaide had only wanted to dress up as a beautiful girl for Halloween. But on her way to find Violet, she met her untimely end. Meanwhile, in the mansion's basement, Ben slowly regained consciousness. He saw a woman standing beside him, the mansion's original owner, Nora. She refused to allow more tragedy in the house, so she freed Ben from his restraints. After telling Ben to protect Vivian's unborn baby, she disappeared again. Hayden, now a spirit, sought revenge on Ben's wife. She was determined to make Vivian realize the truth. Hayden told her that Ben had killed her. Vivian didn't believe a word Hayden said, pointing out that if Hayden were dead, she wouldn't be standing there. Hayden noticed that Vivian was pregnant and remembered her own lost child. Enraged, Hayden smashed the family portrait and picked up a shard of glass. She said she was hurt, and it was all Ben's fault. Now, she was going to kill Vivian. At that moment, Ben appeared just in time. Under Hayden's threats, Ben finally confessed the truth. His business trip wasn't for a patient. He had gone to Boston to be with Hayden. He also admitted that Hayden had been pregnant with his child, and it was all a lie. With Ben's confession, Hayden finally put down the glass. Just then, the police arrived. Meanwhile, Constance brought Violet to her home and revealed a secret. Constance told Violet that Tate was actually her son and had died long ago. But in death, Tate had lost part of his memory, making him believe he was still alive. Constance begged Violet to keep the secret because Tate was sensitive and lacked the strength to handle the truth. Violet was skeptical, insisting that the dead couldn't come back to life. That's when Constance pulled out a photo of Tate and Adelaide together, confirming the truth. Tate had always thought he was alive and sought out Ben as his therapist, believing he had psychological issues. At the same time, Tate, being chased by the spirits, was cornered. He had no idea why they were after him. One of the girls stepped forward and revealed the truth. Tate had killed all 5 of them, and they had returned for revenge. Tate, having lost his memory, didn't recognize them. 20 years earlier, there had been a shooting at a prestigious high school. 5 students hid in the library, trying to find a place to stay safe. Then, the sound of the shooter opening the door echoed outside. As the door was about to open, the librarian threw himself against it to block the entrance. The shooter fired through the door, and the students scattered, hiding in all corners of the room. They tried to outmaneuver the shooter but were killed one by one. The others, hearing the gunshots, froze in place, waiting for death. A boy decided to confront the shooter but was killed as well. The last girl, sobbing in fear, attracted the shooter's attention, and that's when she saw his face. It was Tate. Now, 20 years later, Violet, having learned the truth, rushed home and looked up information about the high school massacre. She discovered that everything Constance had said was true. The students she had seen the night before had all died 20 years ago. She then searched for details about the shooter and was horrified to discover that it was Tate, the boy she loved. It was all too much for Violet to process. She hurried downstairs to find her mother, only to see Constance waiting for her. Constance knew that Violet had learned the truth about Tate and told her that the house would make her believe in the existence of spirits. Violet, feeling like she was losing her mind, demanded that Constance leave her house immediately. Seeing that Violet didn't believe her, Constance decided to take her to see someone. This woman was a famous medium in town, and Constance believed she might be able to help Violet see the truth. Halloween had entered its 2nd day, and all the spirits wandering outside were returning to the mansion's basement. They may not have known each other in life, but the mansion had bound together all those who had died within its walls. Violet, overwhelmed by everything, felt like the world was lying to her and contemplated ending her life. Suddenly, she snapped out of it, realizing that her suicidal thoughts had only been in her imagination. Then she heard Tate's voice behind her, but when she turned around, she realized it was just another illusion. She suspected she was seriously ill. Then, Violet found the bully from before. Violet poured out everything that had happened to her recently, admitting that she could no longer distinguish reality. The bully seemed to know something. She had searched the internet and found a story from the Book of Revelation. It said that in heaven, there was a pregnant woman about to give birth, and a 7-headed red dragon was watching, ready to devour the newborn baby. But the archangel Michael drove the dragon to earth, and the dragon, filled with rage, cursed the woman and her descendants. Violet's family, living in the haunted house, was also caught in the curse. Violet said she hadn't slept for 2 days and asked the bully for some sleeping pills to help her rest. After getting the pills, Violet wandered to the library where Tate had once committed his murders. The librarian there was the sole survivor of the massacre. He told Violet that although he was considered a hero, the outcome was tragic. Violet said she knew Tate and that she was his neighbor. She wanted to know the truth about Tate's killings, but the librarian, bitter and angry, refused to talk about Tate. Without getting any valuable information from the library, Violet went home. Suddenly, a strange figure flashed by. Violet thought Tate was leading her to the basement, so she followed. Soon, eerie things started happening. In the basement, All the spirits who had died appeared one by one. Terrified, Violet ran away, but in her daze, she felt like her soul was leaving her body, and she could barely move. When Violet returned to her room, she saw Tate writing "I love you" on the wall. At that moment, she felt she was on the verge of a breakdown. She pulled out the pills she had gotten from the bully and swallowed them all at once. The drugs quickly took effect, and Violet began losing consciousness. Tate appeared again, dragging Violet into the bathroom, splashing cold water on her, and trying to make her vomit the pills. Violet soon woke up, seeing Tate in pain, deeply in love with her. She realized that love had defeated her in the end. Meanwhile, Vivian was doing her daily routine for the baby when she suddenly noticed a tiny handprint moving slowly across her belly. After realizing it was just a false alarm, she headed to the church to find the doctor who had recently examined her. Angela seemed wary of Vivian, and Vivian confessed her worry about the results of the examination. Hoping to hear the truth from her, Angela revealed that she had resigned and had been praying ever since. She had seen what was inside Vivian's womb, and what she saw was terrifying. Vivian dismissed Angela, thinking she had gone insane, and left. On the other hand, Constance couldn't accept Adelaide's death and sought help from a medium to contact her daughter's spirit. Billy agreed to perform the seance, but during the ritual, Constance was reminded of Tate's tragic death. Years ago, after Tate killed several high school students, the SWAT team surrounded the house. Despite Constance's desperate attempts to talk him down, it was no use. Tate, as if possessed by the god of war, stood heroically before being shot multiple times. Tate died and became a trapped spirit, confined to the haunted house forever. A man suffering from severe mental illness came to the house to seek Ben's help. The patient said he was terrified of an urban legend about a pig-headed butcher, and his fear had worsened recently. He couldn't even look in a mirror alone anymore. Ben didn't understand at first, so the man explained the legend of the pig butcher. In Chicago, there was once a butcher who always wore a pig's head mask before slaughtering pigs. He even made pig-like noises. One day, the butcher tripped and was devoured by the pigs he was about to kill, leaving no trace of his body. After that, a strange legend emerged in the town. If someone stood in front of a mirror and called out for the pig butcher, he would appear behind them and slaughter them. To help the patient confront his fears, Ben took him to the bathroom in the haunted mansion. Ben instructed the man that to become brave, he had to face his fears alone. Once inside the bathroom, the man shouted out for the pig butcher, trying to summon his courage. But as he kept calling, something started to feel wrong. He gathered his courage and checked the room. What he saw scared him out of his wits. However, when Ben entered to investigate, he found nothing in the bathtub. He believed the patient had simply experienced another hallucination, but Ben had no idea that the spirit the man had seen was real. Ben told the patient that to fully overcome his fear, he needed to go home, face the mirror, and say the words. The patient, feeling confident, returned to his bathroom, turned off the lights, and chanted the incantation. He finally overcame his fear, but at that moment, a burglar broke into his home and shot him dead. Years ago, Larry had been a handsome man, renting a room in the haunted house. He had an unclear relationship with Constance. Larry had once been Constance's backup, willing to do anything for her. One day, Larry slowly climbed the stairs to the attic. He spotted a red ball rolling towards him, and beyond it, a chain locked a boy in the attic. That boy was Larry's deformed son, kept hidden away for years. Larry, like a loving father, sang his son to sleep, but as soon as the boy closed his eyes, Larry took a pillow and suffocated him. Afterward, Larry, as if possessed, doused the entire room with gasoline, not sparing even his wife and daughter, and set the house on fire. Larry survived the blaze but was forever disfigured. Now, Ben and Vivian went to the hospital for another checkup, worried about the baby's health. The doctor reviewed the report and said the baby was healthy. To their surprise, Vivian was expecting twins. Shocked by the news, both Ben and Vivian were speechless. Given the strange events happening at home, Vivian and Ben decided to sell the mansion. That day, a potential buyer from Persia came to view the house. After only a few steps inside, the man was impressed, especially by the seductive maid. Vivian joked that the house came with the maid, and Moira had served the previous owners. For ethical reasons, Vivian mentioned that a gay couple had died there, but this only piqued the man's interest. He left his contact information and departed. Though Marcy disapproved of Vivian's honesty, suddenly, Larry sneaked into the house, saying he loved the mansion. But Marcy, seeing the state Larry was in, quickly pulled out a handgun she had hidden. Vivian raised her hands to calm Marcy down. Larry explained that he was there to view the house because he was very interested in it, not wanting to escalate the situation. Vivian showed Larry around the mansion. Larry expressed his admiration for the fireplace. As the fire ignited, Larry smiled mysteriously, saying he was extremely interested in the house. That night, exhausted from the day's events, Vivian felt something strange, sensing the rubber suit man standing in front of her. But when she blinked, the figure vanished, and she realized she had just been dreaming again. The next day, the family gathered for a chat. Vivian mentioned that a strange man had come to view the house the day before. Ben immediately became uneasy because he knew the man was Larry. It wasn't until then that Ben began to realize that Larry had a deeper connection to the house than he had thought. Later, the Persian man returned to visit, and the maid, Moira, warmly welcomed him, showing him the beauty of the mansion. The man, faced with such temptation, couldn't resist. Afterward, they entered Violet's room and something happened between them. After they left Violet's room, Moira felt deeply uncomfortable, like she had done something wrong. Ben happened to walk by, and Moira told him that the man had decided to buy the mansion. Ben was thrilled, and the man soon left. Later, Larry returned to his home, but as soon as he stepped inside, he found Ben sitting in the dark, smoking a cigarette. Ben knew Larry had an interest in the house, so he had snuck into his home. Larry was surprised by Ben's visit, and Ben directly asked why Larry had been asking Vivian about the house. Ben had already investigated and found out that everything Larry said was a lie, but Larry insisted he genuinely wanted to buy the haunted house. Ben knew there was no way Larry could afford such an expensive mansion. Larry admitted that the house held special meaning for him and that a mysterious force was drawing him to it. Larry then shared the story from years ago. He had long been Constance's backup lover. He confessed to his wife that he had fallen in love with the wrong person and wanted an amicable divorce. His wife, furious, set fire to the room, killing herself and their son in the blaze. By the time Larry arrived, they had been reduced to ashes, and he was left disfigured. Ben sarcastically asked Larry to continue his performance, and Larry explained that this was just one of the house's terrors. The first owner of the house had also died there. That was supposed to be a happy family, but after a tragic incident, their child was taken away and returned in a box. Unable to bear her husband's failure, the wife lost control and shot him before taking her own life. Meanwhile, Vivian, accompanied by Marcy, joined a tour outside their mansion. As they looked at the house, Marcy advised Vivian not to mention that it was haunted to any potential buyers. Violet was wandering through the haunted mansion when eerie noises suddenly came from the attic above, summoning her courage. Violet went to investigate. A red ball rolled out from the darkness. Violet was so terrified that she nearly lost control, but Tate appeared behind her just in time. The child who was locked in chains fled in fear, while Violet stood, overwhelmed by everything. Tate explained that the child was from the past, one of the spirits trapped in the house. The reason he had appeared in front of Violet was because she had evolved. Tate then rummaged through a box and pulled out an old photograph. It was the first owners of the house. Soon after, a girl in a white dress appeared behind them. When Violet blinked, the girl vanished. Meanwhile, Larry sneaked into the mansion's basement, watching Constance, the woman he had always longed for. Larry informed Constance that Ben's family was selling the house, but Constance was unmoved, claiming no one could truly possess that house. Larry warned her that Vivian had already found a buyer, and the new owner planned to demolish the mansion and rebuild it. This news disturbed Constance, and she decided to team up with Moira to stop it. The scene shifted to the basement, where Moira had lured Joe. Joe thought it was time for some fun, but Larry suddenly appeared behind him and strangled him to death. Another murder occurred in the basement, and upstairs, Vivian and Violet heard nothing. Violet was looking at an old photograph, and when Vivian approached to ask about it, she was horrified. The woman in the photo triggered disturbing memories for Vivian. She had seen her before. Panicked, Vivian asked what was going on, certain that she had met Moira, but the woman in the photograph, Nora, hadn't aged a day. The real estate agent, however, dismissed it as a hallucination brought on by Vivian's pregnancy. Vivian was left deeply confused, wondering if it really had been a hallucination. Upstairs, in another room, Nora was sobbing uncontrollably because she couldn't find her child. Hayden appeared behind her, annoyed that Nora's constant wailing was keeping her from resting, but Nora didn't recognize Hayden. Hayden told her that they were the same, both trapped in the house after death. For some unknown reason, none of them could leave the mansion. She wasn't alone. Many spirits who had died there were trapped as well, gaining supernatural abilities. Moira didn't believe Hayden, still convinced she was alive. Hayden encouraged her to touch the back of her head to understand everything. Nora, suddenly emotional, began to recall things. Hayden then mentioned the twins in Vivian's womb, trying to persuade Nora to take the babies for themselves, one for each of them. Meanwhile, Vivian was alone in the bathroom, reflecting on her life, thinking that her recent exhaustion had caused her mental breakdowns and hallucinations. Just then, an eerie noise echoed from outside, and a red ball rolled to her feet. The lights began flickering, and a shadowy figure appeared behind her. Terrified, all Vivian could do was scream before fainting in the bathroom. Elsewhere, Ben found Violet in the basement, holding the red ball and talking to herself. They went to Ben's office, but despite being a psychiatrist, Ben still couldn't heal his daughter's emotional wounds. His troubled marriage had deeply affected Violet's psyche, and she blamed her mother's recent mental instability on Ben. Vivian, on the edge of a breakdown, told Ben she had really seen strange things. Moved by pity, Moira confessed that the mansion was filled with spirits and urged Vivian to leave. Shaken by the revelation, Vivian decided to take Violet and leave that night. As they got into the car, two dead spirits appeared behind them, forcing the terrified women to run back into the mansion. Unbeknownst to them, Hayden watched from the shadows, pleased that everything was going according to plan. The next day, Ben was furious that Vivian had tried to take their daughter away without his consent. He argued that even if they were separating, she shouldn't take Violet and the unborn baby with her. Vivian, losing control, insisted that she had seen a spirit the night before, standing only a foot away from her, but Ben dismissed it as stress-induced hallucinations. To prove her story, Vivian asked Violet to corroborate what she had seen, but Violet, wanting to stay with Tate, lied and said she hadn't seen anything. Vivian was left speechless by her daughter's betrayal, and Ben's disappointment in Vivian deepened. Meanwhile, Hayden approached Tate, wanting to have some fun with him, but Tate, having fallen in love, told her he wasn't interested in anyone else and walked away, leaving Hayden fuming. Vivian, now desperate, met with the real estate agent again. Taking advantage of a moment alone, she stole a handgun and hid it under her pillow. Later that evening, Vivian pretended to feel unwell and went to bed early. Once alone, she retrieved the gun and began searching the house, hoping to confront any danger. After confirming there was no immediate threat, she turned off the lights and tried to sleep. But just then, a shadow flashed by. When Vivian turned the lights back on, there was nothing there. Still uneasy, she searched the room again. Suddenly, the man in the rubber suit appeared. Terrified, Vivian hit the alarm and grabbed her gun, but when she fired, it was Ben who burst into the room, and he was accidentally injured. The police arrived shortly after. Ben, with a minor wound, greeted them, assuring them it was just a scratch. Vivian had already fallen asleep by then, but in her dreams, she saw Hayden standing before her. Vivian was too tired to keep her eyes open, even when faced with her old rival. But Hayden, relentless, demanded Vivian's babies and called for the man in the rubber suit. During their struggle, the rubber suit man transformed into Ben. Vivian was left utterly confused. She had seen a man in a black rubber suit attack her, with Hayden there demanding her babies. She couldn't believe it was just a hallucination, but the police insisted no one else had been in the house. Ben, worried about Vivian's mental state, called in two psychiatrists to evaluate her. Vivian didn't resist, thinking this might be her chance to escape the mansion. The next day, Hayden's sister arrived with the police to confront Ben. She had filed a missing person report because she hadn't heard from Hayden in a long time and suspected that Ben had killed her. The police officer, who accompanied her, mentioned that when they had received the missing person report, they had seen Ben digging in the backyard to build a gazebo. They suspected that Hayden's disappearance might be related to her being buried under the gazebo. But just then, the already dead Hayden suddenly appeared in front of them and said she was fine. She expressed her love for the beautiful mansion, declaring that this would now be her home, unaware that she had already become a spirit. After her sister left, Hayden kept apologizing to Ben, saying she loved him too much, and that she had already terminated the pregnancy, so there was no need for him to worry about it anymore. Not long after, a strange patient came to see Ben. She introduced herself as Elizabeth, a former extra in small acting roles. She said that everyone she met seemed like her soulmate, and once she got that idea, it became uncontrollable. Elizabeth believed that only Ben could help her now. A call from the doctor shattered Ben's last bit of composure. The doctor revealed that the twins Vivian was carrying had two different fathers. Ben was overwhelmed by this news, and Constance also found out. Moira told Ben that he was only the father of one of the twins. She didn't finish explaining who the other father was. but Constance had a suspicion and hurried to the basement to confront Tate. When she saw Tate, she was overcome with emotion and slapped him, demanding answers for what he had done. Meanwhile, Ben arrived at the hospital to see Vivian. The doctor explained that Vivian's condition was serious and that she had even attacked one of the nurses during her stay. Under the doctor's guidance, Ben went to see Vivian. He stood by her bedside, fighting back the pain in his heart. Ben confessed his feelings to Vivian, blaming her for everything that had gone wrong. He believed that Vivian's infidelity had shattered their marriage and their family. He told her that he would not help her leave the hospital. Ben thought he had everything under control, unaware that his wife lay silent, unresponsive on the bed. When Ben returned home, Hayden found him and insinuated that there might be something going on between Vivian and the police officer. Hearing this, Ben felt like a light bulb went off in his head. He believed Hayden's lies. Ben triggered the house's alarm system, and the police arrived quickly. Ben declared that he knew everything and wanted the police to confess. The officer was confused and clearly didn't know what Ben was talking about. Ben explained that his wife was pregnant with twins, but only one of the babies was his. It was only then that the officer understood Ben was implying that the other child must be his. When the officer admitted to this, Ben almost lost it, but then the officer explained that he was sterile and couldn't have children, so the baby wasn't his. Ben fell into despair again, unsure of who had fathered the second child. He turned to the maid, Moira, demanding the truth, but Moira just gave him a look and walked away. As she turned, she transformed back into her elderly form, leaving Ben in stunned disbelief. At the same time, Constance also learned the truth. She asked Billy what would happen if a living person had sex with a spirit. Billy explained that spirits couldn't have such abilities, but Constance pressed further, asking what would happen if pregnancy occurred. Billy then shared an ancient legend. When a new pope is selected, the bells of Armageddon will ring, and the new pope will be led to a room containing a box. Inside the box is a secret about the end of the world. Constance didn't find the story amusing, but Billy got to the point: if a human and a spirit accidentally conceived a child, it could bring about the end of the world. Ben went back to see Vivian and sincerely apologized to her, but by that time, Vivian didn't want to see him anymore. She told Ben that she had come to terms with everything and didn't want to discuss it further. Realizing that Vivian didn't know what had happened to her, Ben confessed the truth. He told her that the doctor said one of the twins she was carrying wasn't his. Vivian immediately felt something was wrong because she had no idea who the man in the rubber suit was. Meanwhile, at a nearby park, a group of men was playing basketball. One of them chased after a ball and stumbled upon a female corpse, cut in half. Larry stood nearby, watching everything unfold. Just days earlier, a woman named Elizabeth had come to see Ben, claiming she was in big trouble. But Ben, overwhelmed by his own problems, had no time to deal with someone else's mental health issues. What Ben didn't know was that Elizabeth wasn't just anyone. She had been killed 60 years ago in the haunted house. Back then, Elizabeth was a struggling actress trying to make herself more attractive. She went to the surgeon who lived in the house for a dental procedure. She had no money but wondered if there was some other arrangement they could make. The doctor wasn't interested and gave her an oxygen mask to prepare her for surgery. After administering anesthesia, the doctor started to do other things, and Elizabeth, now unconscious, had no idea what was happening. When the doctor went to work on her teeth, he realized she was no longer breathing. Panicking, the doctor realized he had overdosed her on anesthesia, and Elizabeth had died. He dragged her body to the basement but ran into a strange man named Charles, a famous surgeon who had come to help. Together, they took Elizabeth to the operating room to give her a permanent smile. Charles disfigured her and then disposed of her body. Now, Elizabeth had come to Ben to help her release the emotions she had been holding onto for decades. Later, Hayden lured Constance's boyfriend to the basement. After they finished, Hayden felt more unstable than ever, thinking they were a better match. As they embraced to say goodbye, Hayden pulled out a knife and stabbed him. The man died quickly, but in the haunted house's cycle, he soon became a spirit. Seeing his own dead body, the man realized that death wasn't so bad after all. Soon, other spirits who had died in the house appeared. The next day, the police arrived, having found Elizabeth's body. A tragic crime scene photo shattered Constance's fragile heart. She tearfully told the police that the man in the picture was her boyfriend. The police informed her that they were actively investigating the murder and had found his body in a city park. They suspected that he had been murdered and then dumped in the park. Constance suddenly remembered something she had seen in the news. Meanwhile, a man came to see Ben, and upon entering the house, he noticed the strange presence of flies. Ben apologized, realizing that the man had come to discuss his daughter. Violet. The man explained that Violet hadn't been to school in 16 days. Despite multiple attempts to contact Vivian, he had received no response. If Violet didn't return to school soon, the school would file a report with juvenile court against Ben. At that moment, Violet was happily at home, and Ben went outside to try to talk to her. Violet expressed her disappointment in her father, but after some negotiation, she agreed to go to a new school the next day. Meanwhile, Constance confronted Larry, accusing him of killing her boyfriend. Larry, terrified by Constance's anger, swore that he had only moved the body and wasn't responsible for the murder. He even offered to let Constance go to the basement and ask how her boyfriend had died. When Constance returned home, 2 police officers came to see her again, but Constance wasn't in the mood to deal with them. She only wanted to see her boyfriend. As she gathered her things, a knife accidentally fell out of her bag, and it became clear that she would have to go with the police. Meanwhile, Tate, now fully in his rubber suit, reappeared as the black-clad figure. Ben was at home, unaware of Tate's presence, when Tate suddenly appeared behind him. Caught off guard, Ben was nearly knocked out during their struggle. During the fight, Ben managed to pull off Tate's mask. Finally, Ben realized the truth that one of the twins his wife was carrying was fathered by Tate. Ben let out a cry of helpless anger, but it was too late. Tate had already overpowered him. Afterward, Tate went to the attic, where Violet confessed everything to him. Violet finally saw Tate for who he really was, the man in the rubber suit who had been with her mother. She ran down the attic stairs, screaming for her father to save her, which sent Tate into a panic. But when Violet reached the door to call for help, she realized that no one outside could even see her. Tate, now desperate, yelled for Violet to stop running through the house, but Violet wasn't listening anymore. After countless attempts to escape, Violet was on the verge of a mental breakdown. She realized she couldn't get out of the house at all. Crying, she begged Tate for help, admitting that she was still young and didn't want to die. But it was too late for that now. Tate led her to the basement, opening a hidden passage behind the wooden boards. They wandered through the dark, twisting corridors until they reached their destination. Tate warned Violet not to scream, no matter what she saw. In utter shock, Violet came face to face with her own rotting corpse. She froze, finally realizing the truth. She had died the moment she swallowed those pills, and Tate had failed to save her in the bathtub. Now that everything was clear, Violet's already fragile mind completely shattered. She was nothing more than another spirit trapped in the haunted house. Tate had been trying to protect her all along, believing they could live happily ever after in the mansion, but Violet didn't see any happiness in this, only despair. Meanwhile, Constance was brought to the police station. The officers had thoroughly investigated her and suspected her involvement in multiple disappearances. They showed her a file with pictures of her son, the maid, and her husband, all of whom had gone missing. Constance, with an ironclad composure, answered all their questions without giving anything away. Just then, her lawyer arrived, leaving the police with no choice but to let her go. After the police left, the lawyer told Constance that the case had become a media frenzy, and the public was hungry for a scapegoat. That scapegoat might be Constance herself. At the same time, Larry snuck into the mansion's basement, pulling back a section of the wall. He retrieved a blood-stained knife, wrapped it up, and then turned himself in at the police station, confessing to the murders and insisting that no one else was involved. Constance was baffled by Larry's actions, but Larry claimed he was trying to atone for his past sins. In prison, Larry asked to see Constance one last time. He told her that this was his way of paying for the wrongs he had committed in the past. But Constance showed him no mercy, turning her back on him and leaving coldly. Meanwhile, Ben, in a state of madness, insisted on taking Violet to visit Vivian at the psychiatric hospital and announced that they would soon move out of the mansion. Violet, knowing she was now a spirit trapped forever in the haunted house, resisted her father's efforts, but Ben forced her into the car. As they drove away, Violet noticed another version of herself, calmly watching from a window in the mansion. At the hospital, the doctor explained that one of the babies was developing much faster than the other, as if it was absorbing its twin. Ben realized this meant the child of the man in the rubber suit was absorbing his own. In a panic, Ben rushed back home. Vivian refused to go inside the mansion, but Ben assured her that they would soon leave and began packing their things. As Ben retrieved their bags, Vivian suddenly felt sharp pains in her stomach. The baby was coming. Ben called for Violet to come with them, but Violet refused, telling him to take their mother and leave without her. She promised they could visit her anytime. It finally hit Ben something was terribly wrong with his daughter. Violet had no choice but to tell him the truth. She revealed that she was already dead, but Ben refused to believe her. At that moment, Vivian was going into labor. and Constance arrived just in time to help. Vivian, in agony, insisted that it was too early, the baby was only 6 months along. Ignoring her pleas, Constance guided her back into the mansion. Ben, still holding onto Violet, realized that Vivian had gone back inside with Constance. As the front door slammed shut behind them, the family's fate was sealed. Vivian was taken to the basement to give birth. Constance refused to take her to the hospital, claiming that the baby had to be born in the house. Ben tried to call for help, but all the phones had lost their signal. Outside, he heard loud banging and discovered that his car had been smashed to pieces by 2 children. It seemed like everyone was trying to stop him from seeking help. When Ben returned to Vivian, he found the basement filled with people. Flashbacks of past events flooded Ben's mind, and he finally realized that something was terribly wrong with the house. Before he could fully grasp the situation, Constance slapped him, telling him the house was helping him. Ben looked around and saw the same doctors who had been involved in earlier tragic events in the mansion. He finally understood why Vivian had been so desperate to leave. But now it was too late. He had no choice but to trust the spirits around him. Vivian, realizing that the doctors weren't alive, resisted, but a sedative was quickly administered, leaving her helpless. Soon, something went wrong. One of the babies was dead. Ben, devastated, knew that the dead child had to be his. The doctor took the lifeless baby away, but Vivian still had one child left, the child of the man in the rubber suit, and it was far from normal. Within seconds, Vivian started showing signs of complications, and everyone in the room cheered her on to push through. With one final effort, the second baby was born. Exhausted, Vivian was on the verge of death, and Constance took the baby away. Moira, overwhelmed with emotion, shed tears of joy as she held the child. But Vivian was slipping away fast, barely able to say her goodbyes before passing away. As soon as Vivian died, the doctors vanished. Violet, feeling immense guilt, blamed herself for her parents' fate. If only they had left the house sooner. But then, Vivian appeared behind her. She, too, had become a spirit. Now fully aware of the house's sinister nature, Vivian reunited with her daughter in death. The next day, Ben held a funeral for his wife and went to Constance's house to take his child back. But Constance refused to let the baby return to the mansion, warning Ben of the dangerous forces within the house. She told him that the spirits inside would kill the child. And deep down, they both knew it was true. Ben, undeterred, warned Constance to be careful before leaving with the baby. Back at the mansion, Ben, like a loving father, cared for the child. Vivian, now a spirit, silently watched over him. Though Ben couldn't see her, after feeding the baby, Ben carefully arranged the keys and phones on the table, making sure everything was in order. He took one last look at his daughter's photo, then pulled out a gun, ready to end it all. At the last moment, Vivian appeared, and the two embraced one final time. But when Ben came to, he realized he had been hugging nothing but thin air. Determined to leave, Ben prepared to go, but Hayden appeared, blocking his way. He told her to move. But before he could react, another spirit appeared behind him. In Ben's eyes filled with despair, he was brutally murdered. The day after Ben's entire family was killed, a real estate agent showed a new family around the mansion. The agent praised the house's history without shame, emphasizing the low price. The new buyers were confused as to why the mansion was being sold at such a low price. The agent explained everything, including the deaths of Ben's family. But instead of being scared, the couple seemed even more interested. The man said that as long as no one had been murdered inside the house, it wouldn't affect his business. The agent continued her sales pitch, and the man immediately decided to buy the house. Meanwhile, Gabriel was recklessly skateboarding inside the mansion, unaware that he was disturbing the spirits. They made Gabriel fall, causing a supernatural event that caught his father's attention. As Gabriel was about to leave, Violet appeared behind him. At the same time, the police returned to Constance, asking more questions about Vivian's family's death. Constance answered every question flawlessly, as if she had nothing to do with it. She said that Violet was the mastermind behind everything, that after killing her parents, she ran away with the newborn child. The police didn't seem to believe Constance and decided to temporarily return to the station with their assistant. Meanwhile, Violet appeared in Gabriel's room, telling him that she was a spirit who lived nearby after her death. Gabriel, though intrigued by her presence, pretended to be aloof and even tried to send Violet away. However, Violet's affectionate words toward Gabriel made Tate, who was eavesdropping outside, furious. The new homeowners were about to become intimate, unaware that two spirits were watching them closely. Ben, watching this new couple, couldn't help but see the similarities between them and how he and his family used to be. Vivian mentioned that this couple should never have a child in the house, so they began planning to take some drastic measures. Moira decided to lend a hand as well. Late at night, while the man was sleeping, he suddenly got up with a blank stare and walked toward the kitchen. At the same time, Ben, dressed in the rubber suit, prepared to attack the sleeping woman. Terrified, the woman screamed in panic, unsure of what the man in the rubber suit wanted from her, desperately calling for her husband to save her. In her frantic state, the spirits of the house started to appear one after another. Even when she ran to the bathroom, there was no escape. The man eventually woke up, thinking he was in a dream, and saw Elizabeth standing before him. Horrified, he heard his wife's screams and rushed to the basement, where he attacked Ben. Vivian hurriedly intervened to stop them. Both the man and woman collapsed to the ground, but then Ben and Vivian stood back up, telling the couple that this was their fate. Without wasting any time, the terrified couple fled to their car, honking the horn frantically to warn their son of the danger. Gabriel was almost killed by Tate, but Violet appeared just in time to stop the tragedy. The family quickly drove away to escape. The next day, the real estate agent once again put up a for sale sign for the haunted house. 3 years passed in a flash. Constance returned home with great excitement, but as soon as she walked in, she noticed blood on the refrigerator and saw that the living room was covered in blood as well. Panicked, she rushed to check the rest of the house, only to find that her housekeeper had been murdered. Sitting in a rocking chair, covered in blood, was the boy Vivian's son, the child born of evil. He waved at Constance as if proudly showing off his work. This boy was the devil's offspring, and with that, the story of season 1 came to an end.